My name is Olivia Carpenter, and this is going to be a continuation of the comprehension lessons. So, what to expect during this lesson? We're going to have Sophia talk about digital literacy. Josie is going to talk about comprehension support for English language learners. I'm going to talk about variability and comprehension skills among readers. And Amanda is going to talk about variability in text, activity, and context regarding comprehension. These are the standards we used in this lesson. And we're going to get into variability and comprehension skills among readers. So, variability in readers. Some sources of variability in comprehension of readers include differences in capabilities of fluency and word recognition, oral language abilities, domain knowledge, and differences in readers' motivation, goals, and purposes. The capabilities and dispositions of the reader brings to the task of reading his or her engagement in and responses to given texts and the quality of the outcomes produced by the act of reading for some purpose are themselves shaped by cultural and subcultural influences, socioeconomic status, home and family background, peer influences, classroom culture, and instructional history. These multiple and interacting factors influence both their inter- and intra-individual differences in reading proficiency. Sociocultural influences. Learning and literacy is viewed as cultural because these are not only brought on by just social interactions, they're also cultural. They represent how different cultures and or discourse communities interpret the world. According to Guy, it is said that an awareness of how members of particular discourse communities construct their identities as readers through their ways of behaving, interacting, valuing, thinking, believing, speaking, reading, and writing is one important step in understanding variability in readers. Schooling in the United States tend to reflect a European American middle class, economically privileged view of what counts as the process and content of learning and literacy. Sociocultural perspective is often shown in the poor literary performances of children who are not exposed to the typical European American norms in the schools. Understanding these sociocultural influences and researching them can help teachers and test makers to successfully aid in comprehension development of these students. There are also group differences, and group differences are somewhat concurrent with sociocultural influences. A group is considered a large body of people without being connected to cultural factors. And one example of this would be income-based grouping, so low income, high income, etc. And another group could be a group of children who speak English as their second language. Inter-individual differences is the next variability. Differences in reading comprehension can be different for every child. These come from personal strengths and weaknesses of the student, and these variabilities include vocabulary and linguistic knowledge, including oral language skills and an awareness of language structure, non-linguistic abilities and processes such as attention, visualization, inferencing, reasoning, critical analysis, and working memory, engagement and motivation, and understanding of the purposes and goals of reading, discourse knowledge, domain knowledge, and cognitive and metacognitive strategy development. Another main factor in inter-individual differences is the variability of the reader's comprehension and how competent he/she is a reader. By giving the student that is struggling clear directions and tasks and giving feedback helps the efficiency of the reader. Inter-individual differences may be usefully targeted in research evaluating the relative contributions made by individual capabilities and dispositions to variability and reading comprehension outcomes. Intra-individual differences. Intra-individual differences of reading competencies can be observed during each phase of reading development, sometimes described as the uneven development of important skills and subskills that underlie proficient reading. For example, a child who is in the beginning stage of reading, if the student is not giving correct instruction, it can be detrimental to later stages of reading development. And so I want to ask if any of you have noticed any of these reader variabilities in a classroom setting before, if you've noticed them in your past classroom experiences as a student, or if you've been in a classroom recently. And if you have noticed them or you have experienced them, what can you do to help the student who is suffering from one of these differences? What can you help them to overcome these differences and help aid in the continuation of reading development? Next is going to be Amanda, and she's going to be talking about variability in text, activity, and context.